Okay, we are on, girls. So it is recording already, and but I'm sure Mr. Campbell can work around that. And it right after we finished the last one, it like converted it, and it took a little while, but I uploaded it, so it was fine. And I went right onto the drive, and I checked it, opened it up, and it played. So I think we're good.
Yay! I'm so excited.
No, me too. I'm kind of wondering now, though, if I can. It's not going to let me for the music. Well, can one of you pull up that song, because it won't let me minimize it. I don't know if it will the same for you guys because you're co-hosts.
Should I just keep playing the song over and over again?
Yeah, just at the beginning here. I think that would be a good idea. And I would do it now. We don't have any attendees yet.
Oh my gosh, I started playing a random song.
That's okay.
Miss Lynn,
Yeah.
I also have another question. So Cindy and I were thinking the ceremony, we have it planned to end at 7:30. So I told Miss Bandry that we would pick up the stuff at 8. But now looking at like the schedule, it seems to have end earlier, the ceremony. So we were wondering, do we have to wait until 8, or could we go pick it up after the ceremony ends?
I'm sure we can pick it up right after.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so what we'll do is right when it ends, I mean, I can just jump in my car and head down there if that, is that what you guys want to do?
Yeah, it's gonna take me a little bit while because I live in San Juan. So we were thinking maybe if it ends at 7 to meet there at 7:15.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and Sydney, does your dad have a dolly? Like, you know, like those little cart things?
I can check right now.
Okay, because I've got one at the high school I could go get, but just ask him. And it looks like we have an attendee, so let's play the music.
I'm trying to get it to work. It's not working right now.
Okay. I might be able to just put it on my phone and play it.
I'm creating a playlist because it won't let me play it without the playlist for some reason.
And for those of you that are joining us, we will be starting pretty close to 6 o'clock.
Did you stand there in shock at the sight of that black smoke rising against that blue sky? Did you shout out in anger and fear for your neighbor, or did you just sit down and cry? Did you weep for the children lost their dear loved ones. Pray for the ones who don't know. Did you rejoice for the people who walked from the rubble and sob for the ones left below? Did you burst out with pride for the red, white, and blue, and the heroes who died just doing what they do? Did you look up to heaven for some kind of answer and look at yourself and what really matters? I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us, and the greatest is love. Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day? Teaching a class full of innocent children, or driving down some cold interstate? Did you feel guilty cause you're a survivor? In a crowded room, did you feel alone? Did you call up your mother and tell her you loved her? Did you dust off that Bible at home? Did you open your eyes and hope it never happened? Close your eyes and not go to sleep. Did you notice the sunset the first time in ages? Speak to some stranger on the street. Did you lay down at night, think of tomorrow, go out and buy you a gun? Did you turn off that violent old movie you're watching and turn on I Love Lucy reruns? Did you go to a church and hold hands with some strangers, stand in line and give your own blood? Did you just stay home and cling tight to your family? Thank God you had somebody to love. I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us, and the greatest is love. I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us, and the greatest is love. And the greatest is love. And the greatest is love. Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day? Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day? Were you in the yard with your wife and children, or working on some stage in LA? Did you stand there in shock at the sight of that black smoke rising against that blue sky? Did you shout out in anger and fear for your neighbor, or did you just sit down and cry? Did you weep for the children who lost their dear loved ones? pray for the ones who don't know? Did you rejoice for the people who walked from the rubble, sob for the ones left below? Did you burst out with pride for the red, white, and blue, and the heroes who died just doing what they do? Did you look up to heaven for some kind of answer and look at yourself and what really matters? I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us, and the greatest is love. Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day? Teaching a class full of innocent children, driving down some cold interstate. Did you feel guilty cause you're a survivor? In a crowded room, did you feel alone? Did you call up your mother and tell her you loved her? Did you dust off that Bible at home? Did you open your eyes and hope it never happened? Close your eyes and not go to sleep. Did you notice the sunset the first time in ages? Speak to some stranger on the street. Did you lay down at night, think of tomorrow, go out and buy you a gun? Did you turn off that violent old movie you're watching and turn on I Love Lucy reruns? Did you go to a church and hold hands with some strangers, stand in line and give your own blood? Did you just stay home and cling tight to your family? Thank God you had somebody to love. I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us, and the greatest is love. I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us, and the greatest is love. And the greatest is love. And the greatest is love. Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day? Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day? Were you in the yard with your wife and children, or working on some stage in LA? Did you stand there in shock at the sight of that black smoke rising against that blue sky? Did you shout out in anger and fear for your neighbor, or did you just sit down and cry? Did you weep for the children who lost their dear loved ones, pray for the ones who don't know? Did you rejoice for the people who walked from the rubble and sob for the ones left below? Did you burst out with pride for the red, white, and blue, and the heroes who died just doing what they do? Did you look up to heaven for some kind of answer and look at yourself and what really matters? I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us, and the greatest is love. Where were you when the world stopped turning that September day? Teaching a class full of innocent children, or driving down some cold interstate? Did you feel guilty cause you're a survivor? In a crowded room, did you feel alone? Did you call up your mother and tell her you loved her? Did you dust off that Bible at home? Did you open your eyes and hope it never happened? Close your eyes and not go to sleep. Did you notice the sunset the first time in ages? Speak to some stranger on the street. Did you lay down at night, think of tomorrow, go out and buy you a gun? Did you turn off that violent old movie you're watching and turn on I Love Lucy reruns? Did you go to a church and hold hands with some strangers, stand in line and give your own blood? Did you just stay home and cling tight to your family? Thank God you had somebody to love. I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us, and the greatest is love. I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us, and the greatest is love.
Good evening, Baylors and community members.
Thank you so much for joining us in attendance for the remembrance of September 11th, 2001. I'm Sydney Yamanishi.
And I'm Adrian Omar. We are this year's ASB's Commissioner of Culture and Climate.
Today we look back and honor the innocent lives lost 19 years ago. We honor the courage of the first responders who put themselves in harm's way to save others.
We also honor the survivors and families of 9/11. Their strength is inspiring to this entire country. They show us how Americans, when united, can overcome anything.
And finally, we honor the men and women in uniforms who have stepped forward to risk their lives and serve. We also remember those who have given their lives to keep us safe.
We come together today, united, in remembrance of September 11th, 2001.
May we always remember and never forget the innocent lives lost, their families, the survivors, and the heroes.
And now, to begin with our ceremony, please rise if able to and remove all caps for Emma Zamora singing the national anthem.
Hi, my name is Emma Zamora, and I'm going to be singing the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Anna Zamora, for singing the national anthem. Now introducing the 9/11 newsletter from Sydney and I.
Day, September 11th, 2001. For me and my family personally, September 11th was a reminder that life is fleeting, impermanent, and uncertain. Therefore, we must make use of every moment and nurture it with affection, tenderness, beauty, creativity, and laughter. Deepak Chopra.
September 11th, 2001 wasn't like any other day. Waking up to Good Morning America for the daily news would bring an image that most were not ready for, with desperation and fear that was hard to fathom. The deadliest terrorist attack in the U.S. history took place when 4 commercial airlines were hijacked by the militant members of Islamic extremist group Al-Qaeda.
That morning, workers woke up to go to work at Manhattan's World Trade Center, a complex known as the Twin Towers. These massive skyscrapers were 110 stories each and housed 430 companies. At 8:46 a.m., tragedy struck. 5 hijackers crashed American Airlines Flight 11 into the northern facade of the World Trade Center's northern tower. At 9:03 a.m., another 5 hijackers crashed United Airlines Flight 175 into the southern facade of the South Tower. It took less than an hour for both the Twin Towers to fall and cause massive destruction and affect surrounding buildings. American Airlines Flight 77 hit the western side of the Pentagon just outside Washington, D.C., killing all 64 people on board, including 5 hijackers and 6 crew, as well as 125 people inside the building. Lastly, the 4th plane, United States Airlines Flight 93, crashed down in a field in rural Pennsylvania, containing 44 people on board. All of those on board were killed, including 4 hijackers. The plane never reached its intended target because of the heroic acts of the crew and passengers who fought back against terrorists. On September 11, 2001, 2,977 people died, 19 hijackers committed murder-suicide, and more than 6,000 others were injured.
September 11th, 2001 is a day of remembrance where we honor the lives lost on American soil. We honor the law enforcement, the firefighters, and other first responders that ran towards the chaos to do everything they possibly could to serve their fellow man. This horrific event is called Patriot's Day. It's a day where we put political, religion, and economic differences aside and form unity to become whole again. I look outside my window and see ashen hues of orange and gray skies. This is much what the skies looked like 19 years ago. Our heroes are still running towards the chaos. American Red Cross is still present to help those in turmoil. I hope we say thank you. I hope we can remember and love and value one another. I hope we can stay true to the promise we said to never forget.
Now, we would like to present memories and experiences from the public. Here are the 9/11 stories.
On the morning of September 11th, 2001.
Wow, 9/11. So 9/11, 2001.
I was a senior in college and I was getting ready for my classes for that day.
What I like to think about when I think of 9/11 is not the initial shock of what happened, but the aftermath of the entire country coming together.
I was in Sacramento. I had just moved there for a new job at the federal court.
It was about 6:45 in the morning and I was watching the Today Show and they were covering the first plane that had hit the tower, one of the towers.
And I was getting ready for work that Tuesday morning when the phone rang. It wasn't even 7 in the morning yet, and it was the judge's secretary calling me.
And as I'm watching their coverage of the first plane that hit, the second plane hit, and I saw that live on TV.
Which was weird. And he asked me if I had been watching the news. And I said no. And he said, well, the United States is under attack.
I remember feeling confused and scared and not really knowing what was going to happen around the rest of the country.
So American flags everywhere. People hung them from their houses. They had them on their cars. The singing of God Bless America outside Washington, D.C. Like, oh, before a baseball game still brings tears to my eyes.
He asked me if I wanted to go into work that day. Said it was my choice. And I thought about the fact that it was a high-rise federal building and politely declined until we knew more about what was happening.
School wasn't closed yet, so I still had to go to campus for classes for that day. And after the first class, for safety reasons, the entire campus was closed.
And it turned out nobody went to work that day. They locked up the federal building and wouldn't let anyone come to work.
I had to go to a local elementary school to do my volunteer hours for my degree. And it was a first grade class, and the teachers had told all of us volunteers not to say anything to the kids.
So that day, I just spent glued to the news like everybody else in the United States. I was in the apartment with Mr. Raymond, my now husband, and we didn't have a TV. We were so newly moved in. We didn't have a TV. We didn't have internet. This was before smartphones. So we were experiencing this kind of as if we were living in the 1930s. We just had the radio.
Stories with these little 6-year-old first graders who had no clue what was going on in the world. And it was very jarring to know that it felt like the world or life was ending in a certain way. And yet these little kids had no idea what was going on.
I think that's what when I think of 9/11 and I think of the tragedy, I also think that it brought a lot of unity to this country, something that we don't have right now.
In the afternoon, we decided to head out and walk around and see if we could find some kind of establishment, like a restaurant or bar that had a TV so we could see some footage. And we watched the footage for a few minutes. But by that time, we knew from the news reports that there was a massive loss of life. And we realized that watching that footage felt like a violation because we were watching the end of people's lives. And one thing that really stands out to me about that day is that walk around Sacramento, which is usually a bustling city on a weekday, and just how dead that whole town was. Streets were empty, there weren't cars, there was nobody else walking around. And although in future days there would be this brief period of national unity and togetherness, on that day there was this real palpable sense of isolation. Everyone was just hunkered down in their separate spaces, feeling shock and sadness and fear about what the future was going to look like.
It's a sweet world. The table is prepared.
I would first like to thank Ms. Madden, Ms. Dukes, and Ms. Burke for sharing their 9/11 experience and memories. Now, I would like to introduce veteran Sarah Messer, who will be sharing a few words.
Hi, my name is Sarah. On 9/11, 2001, I was in my first year in the Air Force. I was 19 years old and I was stationed in Italy. My job was military police. We had just worked a normal 8-hour day and I was returning back to the dorms. I got a call from my supervisor. He said, turn on the TV. That's when I saw the second plane hit the tower. I immediately went back to the base. Our base and many others went into force protection condition Delta. We worked another 24 hours that night. After that day, our work hours doubled. It definitely was a lot of responsibility for a 19-year-old, but I grew up quick. There's so much more that happened that I'm not allowed to talk about. But I will never forget. And today being September 11th, it's just a sad day that our country was attacked, that people hated us so much that they killed innocent people. So much. So, patriots, hug each other, protect each other. Can't let this happen again. God bless.
Thank you, Ms. Messer. Now I'd like to introduce ASB President and Vice President Alec Garcia and Luis Espinoza.
Good afternoon. My name is Alec Garcia, and I'm this year's ASB President.
And hello, my name is Luis Espinoza, this year's ASB Vice President.
September 11th, 2001 was a day that changed the character of the United States. A day that we will always remember for tragedy and loss.
And as current high schoolers, we were too young or not even alive when this tragic day occurred. But now we understand the significance of this tragic occasion.
This day, September 11th, in history defined who we were as Americans, how we came together after this horrific tragedy, and how we helped one another. It showed that although we have differences, as a country, we can come together and help our neighbors.
It was as if time stopped for a second, so we can recollect on who we are and what we can do as a country together.
It's a day where we remind ourselves that we are one. A day that we forget about all the things that make us different. And instead, remember the 2,977 people who lost their lives that day.
Now, San Benito High School wants to honor and remember all of the first responders who were helping in any way that they could that day. Whether you, a family member, or a friend, or a firefighter, a medic, or a police officer assisting at the scene, we want to remember and thank you for your courageous actions.
So I ask that today we come together to remember those who lost their lives and to remember and thank those first responders who helped those affected by this attack. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec and Luis. Now I'd like to introduce former Chief Westrick to say a few words.
Hi, my name is David Westrick. I'm a former police chief with the city of Hollister, and this is my 9/11 story. On September 11th, 2001, I was actually at home recovering from a major surgery. I was sitting in my bed. I had just poured myself a cup of coffee and was watching the morning news. I believe it was the Today Show. And I noticed that they were talking about a plane crash of some sort, and saw a video of plane hitting Tower 1. And so, I turned the sound up, of course, and I'm like, wow, that's horrible. How could a plane hit Tower 1? And then as the live broadcast was going, I saw the second plane hit Tower 2. And I knew obviously that was a intentional terrorist act. And I'm sitting there, in my bed. I have staples across my abdomen and other things. And clearly I couldn't go back to work, but I really wanted to. So I remember I called my doctor up right then. And I said, you're going to release me to go back to work. I need to go help the people that I'm working with. I was a police officer back then at Redwood City Police Department. And I just kind of felt this need to go back and do whatever I could to help. He said no, of course, I was a mess, so I couldn't go back to work. But I remember this sense of anger, anguish and sadness. It was a day that changed our country, changed this world. And the things that unfolded afterwards were just as significant. I hope that we've learned something from them, and hopefully we become more understanding and just better as a nation and better as human beings. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you, former Chief Westrick. Now introducing San Benito High School's Student Activities Director, Ms. Lemos.
Hello, my name is Catalina Lemos, and I'm the Activities Director at San Benito High School, and I'm also a lifelong resident of Hollister, California. I want to share a little bit about how I felt on September 11, 2001. I remember I had just flown home from Florida 2 days prior, and my son was 6 months old and was sleeping in the little swing next to the bathroom while I was getting ready. And my sister called me and asked me if I had looked at the television, and I told her I had not, and she told me I'd better turn it on. And I still remember looking at that screen and just not believing that what I was seeing was happening in our country. It was a difficult rest of the day, just kind of watching the events unfold. But I think what I'd like to focus on most is the way that everybody united as a country, especially behind New Yorkers and everyone that lost somebody in that tragic event. I also wanted to talk a little bit about an opportunity I had 2 years ago to visit the 9/11 Museum in New York City. It was really a neat experience. The two things that stood out to me the most, I remember, was there was a staircase. It was all in shambles, but part of it had been preserved, and you could just imagine the people trying to get out of that building, and that really stuck with me. And then also the room with the pictures of the 3,000 people that lost their lives that day. That was overwhelming to see. You weren't allowed to take pictures of anything in that room, but just to stand in that room and look around is pretty humbling. Our high school has 3,000 students, and to think about that number being wiped from the planet in one day is pretty difficult to handle. But I highly recommend going if you get a chance. It's very moving. And a beautiful memorial to the people that lost their lives that day, and all the heroes and firefighters and first responders that saved people and then also that lost their lives. So that's pretty much what I remember. And I know many of you don't remember because you weren't born yet, and that's okay. But just know that that was a day that was tragic, but many good things came out of it, as far as the unity and whatnot.
Thank you, Ms. Lemos. Now we would like to present another 9/11 remembrance video.
You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round. You can't find a fighter, but I see it in you. So 9/11, I remember this very clearly. This day, I was in the morning. I was getting ready to go to work. Go teach. It was centered around what happened on 9/11, and then luckily we had cable those days, and we sat there and we had the TV on all day. Horrific events.
And actually, just to end that, and I still think about it every year, but I'd say one happy note on that is my 8th grade daughter was born on 9/11. I like to think of that as being a bright spot to other than what happened. So
my biggest memory of 9/11 personally is that I had to work at the coffee shop on UCLA's campus that day. And the campus was still open, which was kind of weird because something so horrible had just happened. But I remember distinctly being there and working at a coffee shop and serving no coffee because there was no one there. It was like a ghost town, which is pretty creepy for a place that usually has 30,000 people.
The silence is quiet.
2001. I lived in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is right across from Manhattan and right across the Hudson. Every morning I will get up and run to the train and jump on the PATH train, go under the Hudson, right into the World Trade Center. On that morning, I just happened to run about 8 minutes late. So as I was shuffling down the street, doing my normal routine, waving to the dry cleaner and the pizza shop owner, I kept saying, I'm running late, I gotta go. And I got on the train, the PATH train, and like I said, it goes right under the Hudson River, straight into the World Trade Center. And we got over there, and for some reason, when we got into the basement of the World Trade Center, they weren't allowing us to get out. And the train conductor had said that there was some sort of an accident took place. Now, I worked on the 97th floor of Tower 1. The company that I worked for, Marsh, they occupied 93 through 100 and almost a mile up from where I was sitting. That's how tall that building was. And so we sat there in the dark for a long time and got a little panicky. I thought, oh, somebody must have fell on the tracks that morning. Something terrible had happened. But when you're that far under, and back then we didn't have anything but pagers and cell phones, no smartphones. So the communication was a little different than it is today. So in the dark, I used my pager to let my boss and my colleagues know that I'm running a little late. There's some sort of an accident and I'm down in the basement. But when you get this, I'll be above ground and I'll shoot right up to the 99th floor because I had a meeting that morning. So the train conductor said, we're gonna have to back out, reroute, and they did that. And when they rerouted us, I got out on Christopher Street, which is the West Village, and still in walking distance to the World Trade Center. And when I got out of the subway station and came up above ground, my pager started going off immediately. A ton of pages were coming through from family and friends asking if I was okay. Am I in the building? Did I get out? Kamikaze hits World Trade Center. It was very confusing because I was up against a building and I wasn't looking south yet where the buildings are, and the buildings were so tall there, but I could see while I'm walking east, the entire world came to a full stop and there were just, everybody's looking up. So when I got to that corner and I turned the corner, there were the buildings, I could see them, and I looked up with everybody else and I thought, oh my gosh, there's a hole in my building. And there's a hole in the second building. And all I thought was a small airplane or a Cessna, something must have hit the building and surely they're getting everybody out. And this is just crazy. And the sky was quiet. There were no planes, and a lot of planes go over New York and New Jersey, but there were a ton of sirens and fire engines and ambulances, and everybody around started saying, I kept saying, I work in the hole. I work where the hole is. It hit I know where our office is. And then I heard terrorism. Everybody said terrorism, and everybody started to panic. And I was in a panic myself, and all I kept trying to do was call my parents who live in California because I know they're up early and I know they're worrying about me. So I just kept dialing, and the Verizon tower had been hit as well because it was also down there at the World Trade Centers. So I wasn't getting through, but I finally did get through. My dad answered and in a panic, and he said, are you okay? And I said, I'm okay. And he started panicking and crying, and my mom and everybody were screaming, she's alive, because they thought I was there, because I really should have been in that building at that time. At which point I told them, please just call everybody and tell them I'm okay. I need to get out of the city. Things started getting very chaotic. I just saw that smoke coming out of the hole of the World Trade Center. So I ran back down into the PATH train. and the train conductor and the people operating the payment center where you get onto the train just opened it up and told everybody, go, 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 go as fast as you can. And we got on that train. I think it was the last train out of New York, back under the Hudson, back over to Hoboken. And when I got to Hoboken, and I got above ground with just hundreds and hundreds of people, I looked across the river and watched the tower fall, and watched the tower it was gone. And so I, with hundreds of people just in a daze, walked back to my apartment into Hoboken, and people were just looking at each other like, what's going on? And we were all so lost. My sister met me back at my apartment. On the way back to my apartment, the people that I see every day that I said hello to in the morning were hugging me. They couldn't believe that I was coming back. Here I am. At this point, it's almost 11 a.m. And saw my sister. It was such a wonderful, at this point, I still wasn't entirely sure what was going on. I just knew that the towers were gone and some sort of act of terrorism had taken place. And anyway, jumping forward, I was on the disaster recovery team to get the technology back up and running, because all of our company's technology was housed in that building. And we did that, and I worked for days in a row. And by Thursday, this huge company that I work for that's worldwide was back up and running. But the unfortunate part was those people that I was supposed to meet with, and my boss and a ton of my colleagues, about 350 employees died. And I spent the next month going to funerals, and funerals without, they never found a lot of those people. So they were just the funeral, but with a picture and not the person. And it was a very sad day for my company and for a lot of people. Something like this takes hours to tell, and I'm trying to fit it all in a short video, but at the end of the day, your outlook on life is completely different. I was saved. I survived that. I got out of the city. I was running late that day, but unfortunately so many people that I worked with, 350 employees and their families, are still sad today, like most of us, but still having to deal with such a terrible, terrible life event. And I'll end it with that.
Thank you all for sharing your 9/11 memories. Now, here's San Benito High School's principal, Mr. Ramirez, to say a few words.
Hello, San Benito High School community. On behalf of the San Benito High School staff, thank you all for taking the time to view our 9/11 memorial and tribute video. I would first like to thank the organizers of this event, student commissioners of culture and climate, Sydney Yamanishi and Adriana Omar, our director of student activities, Mrs. Catalina Lemos, and all of our ASB students involved in supporting their efforts. Today, we all look back to honor those who lost their lives on September 11, 2000. On this day, 19 years ago, our country was changed forever, history books were rewritten, and families were never the same again. Innocent people lost their lives, and brave first responders sacrificed everything to make sure they saved lives. 19 years ago, families lost sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters. With us gathering here today, we show those families we will never forget, and their loved ones will always be remembered. By us coming together today and putting on this ceremony, we show that our spirit will never be broken. We will show hope, faith, and resilience. So let us bond together and show that we are a community that respects and cares for each other. Thank you. At this time, let us observe a moment of silence.
Please join me in a moment of silence for the lives of the men, women, and children lost 19 years ago on September 11, 2001, for the brave heroes who dedicated and lost their lives protecting and saving other people's lives. The moment of silence begins now.
We would like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us to remember and honor 9/11.
We come together today, united in remembrance of September 11th, 2001.
May we always remember and never forget the innocent lives lost, their families, the survivors, and the heroes. May we continue to remember and honor all the lives lost. We will remember.
To close, we would like to end with a quote by former President Barack Obama. Even the smallest acts of service, the simplest act of kindness, is a way to honor those we lost, a way to reclaim that spirit of unity that followed 9/11.
Thank you all for joining us in the remembrance of September 11th, 2001. We also want to thank an extra thank you to Ms. Bandry and the VFW troop for the assisting with the morning ceremony today. Thank you again.
Okay, this concludes our ceremony. I thank you all so much for being here and paying tribute to these families and the victims. So have a nice evening, and thank you for taking the time to remember. Good night. Thank you. Great job, Adriana and Sydney.